Hey guys, Matt here. Before we begin this episode of Tower Junkies, I just want to mention that we are currently running a contest where you can win a free Tower Junkies t-shirt. The contest runs from now until January 1st, 2018, and if you want to enter, all you have to do is leave a rating and a review of the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher, take a screenshot of the review, and email it to matt@obsessiveviewer.com with the subject line Tower Junkies t-shirt contest. On January 1st, I'll randomly select a winner from the entries, and we'll get a free t-shirt mailed to them. We'll be accepting entries until December 31st at midnight, so make sure you get the email in before then. Thank you guys for listening, and enjoy this week's episode of Tower Junkies.
You're clean, aren't you? Except for your tower. You're a tower junkie, Roland.
Hello and welcome to Tower Junkies, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. Tower Junkies is a podcast devoted to Stephen King and his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. We discuss the themes, characters, and mythology of the series in palaver episodes, and review the books and comic series in Kef episodes. We also discuss King novels related to the Dark Tower, non-Tower King novels, TV and film adaptations of King's work, and the latest news about potential Dark Tower-related adaptations. You can find more of our work at TowerJunkiesPod.com and follow us on every level of social media at TowerJunkiesPod. For more of our podcast content under the ObsessiveViewer.com banner, check out ObsessiveViewer.com/podcasts. I am your host, Matt Hurt, and with me today is Tiny. Hi, Tiny.
Good afternoon.
Good day.
I don't know.
It's 11 o'clock at night.
It is 11 o'clock at night.
That's fine. Good way afternoon.
Good morrow, sir.
Jesus. Anyway,
I don't
know. Welcome. Yeah, welcome. And everything. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good. So we're here today to talk about Christine, obviously.
Yes.
The movie, the 1983, wow, why am I blanking? John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Movie.
JC.
Yeah. Based on King's novel, of course. Yeah, so before we do that, do you have any King check-ins or anything?
I don't have any updates from last time. Still getting started on different seasons.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any, like, tangential PSN things?
Oh, yeah. I did purchase a PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
And I have not played very much. My wife and I are hosting Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And so I've dedicated a lot of time to like fixing up our house and cleaning and getting stuff ready for that. So I've had my PlayStation for like almost a month. Mm-hmm. And is that right? Yeah, almost a month.
Yeah, sounds right.
I've got like 7 hours logged on it, maybe 7 hours. Yeah, so I just haven't had a chance to play it very much yet.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the PS4 family.
Thank you.
I guess. The reason that I bring that up is I was super jealous because I've had my PlayStation Network ID for like a long time, like probably a decade at this point. Mm-hmm. Before I had read The Dark Tower and before I fell in love with The Dark Tower. So my stupid PSN ID is I'll just say it's Top Banana 0769, which is not a sexual thing. It's not like teenage sexual thing. It's a reference to my car, which is fitting for this episode, actually.
It is.
And it's the paint, the paint style of my car and the production number of my car. But anyway, Tiny, though, you made me super jealous because you just created a new PSN ID because
I did.
Had one. So do you want to tell the audience what it is?
I don't remember exactly what it is because I haven't played. I think it's Leineveld 1999.
That's right, with no spaces or anything. Yeah. So I was super jealous of that. So hey, if you have a PS4, add us and stuff.
Yeah, add me on there. That's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a very tangential, a very, very loose King check-in.
Yeah.
As for me, there was something about The Outsider. King's next book. I believe it is going to come out in June. And I want to say it's already available to pre-order on Audible. I'm checking right now. Okay, it is available for pre-order. The hardcover is, at least. I don't believe that it is available for pre-order on Audible yet, but it is available for pre-order on Amazon for the hardcover.
Okay.
It releases on June 5th, 2018. So that's exciting. It's the plot description. I'll just read it real quick. Is an unspeakable crime, a confounding investigation. At a time when the King brand has never been stronger, he has delivered one of his most unsettling and compulsively readable stories. And there's more about the plot, but I'll save that for, next summer when we cover it. But
Cool.
yeah, so I'm excited for that. It's just amazing that King is still cranking out
I know.
books at such a quick rate. Definitely makes our job harder.
Yeah.
But so today we're here to talk about Christine, the 1983 John Carpenter movie. And Tiny, let's start with talking about our connection to Christine, the movie, and also the book, because I reviewed the book in a previous episode. Have you read Christine, and how do you feel about it if you have?
Oh, I've read Christine. I say that because it was the first Stephen King book I ever read. Well, second Stephen King book I ever read, but it started me on my kick, kind of.
Nice.
It was in the summer of 1999 when I rode my bike back and forth to the library quite a bit over the summer and read like 4 or 5 Stephen King books that summer and really became a fan. So Christine was kind of the source of it. The first book I ever read, by the way, was The Shining, which was the year before.
Samesies.
Yeah. But it was for school, so I think it kind of tainted the experience a little bit. So I loved the book. I think I chose it. It's odd because the library has 10 Stephen King novels. I don't know what it... it's odd that that's the first one I chose. I think it's because I just liked the cover.
Yeah.
It was, the grill of the car, and I was like, oh, I like cars. So yeah, I read the book then. And I don't remember the first time I saw the movie. I'm not sure. But I had seen it before. I watched it recently for the podcast. I hadn't seen it in a while, but I had seen it before, so. Nice. Yeah.
I hadn't read it until recently, and you can go back and listen to my review of it in the feed to get my my review of the actual book. I had seen the movie before. At the time, before rewatching it for this, I thought that I had only seen it in bits and pieces, like something like it was like frequently on like HBO or something when like at a certain time. But rewatching it for this podcast, I realized I'd watched a good portion of it, like a good amount of it.
Okay.
So I believe that I had seen it in its entirety before. I do have a very vivid memory of basically seeing the movie and then like that night going with my mom for her to run an errand at her work, and it being like in the middle of the night, and then going to work actually at the building where we were security guards at. She was a security guard at the time, and it's actually for the company I work for now is in that same building. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. It's downtown Indy. But anyway, I vividly remember being like a kid, and like she ran into the building to get something, and I'm just in this like ominous parking garage, and in the middle of the night, no other cars or anything. I think it was a weekend, so the building was shut down. So everything is like very dark and everything. And I had just seen this movie about this car that came to life and killed people, and I was like kind of freaking out a little bit. But yeah, and I wanted to work this in earlier, but Tiny, there's not much nothing better than a new like checking out a King book or anything, except maybe Pussy.
Oh my God.
Such aside from The Man in Black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed, maybe King's most iconic line.
Yes. I love that line.
It's so yeah.
And I love how in the movie it only comes up twice. Like they could have beat it into the ground,
like King did in the book a little bit.
Yeah, I forgot about that being in the book so much. But I love the use of it in the movie because it only comes up twice. They're really far apart. It's like a callback when he uses it later on. It's a great line.
Yeah.
Except maybe for Pussy.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Who said? No one said. People don't say that.
Right.
But they do. There's always the one asshole who would
Right.
say that,
And the one asshole who would say it on a podcast.
Right.
So anyway,
Yeah.
so let's dive into the movie, our review of it. Of course, we're going to have a non-spoiler and spoiler section. So we'll give you fair warning when we dive into spoilers. But Tiny, and as far as John Carpenter is concerned, obviously iconic director, responsible for Halloween is what he's most known for me.
Right.
Halloween and Halloween 2. I had forgotten just how iconic this movie was. And I was so on board with everything about it. I had such a blast revisiting this movie and watching it again, even though the the stereotypical greaser douchebag bullies, they were a little over the top and too they were Buddy Repperton in particular was just he was just way overdoing it, but it still fit well with the movie, and it didn't diminish my enjoyment of it at all. It actually kind of enhanced it for me because he was such an over the top villain.
Right.
And I love Keith Gordon's performance as Arnie.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's surface level, but it's he's this kind of, nerdy guy who's, not popular or anything. And then his transformation it's kind of night and day. And it's really, really pretty well done. I enjoyed it. What do you think of the movie?
I really like this movie. I forgot how much I did.
Nice.
I'm a John Carpenter fan. I love his visual style. I think, The Thing is one of my favorite movies.
That's right.
It's definitely a top 20. It might be a top 10 favorite movie of mine. I love The Thing. Halloween is my favorite horror movie, probably, and is a phenomenal movie. And then this comes in third place, but it's a high 3 because this is just such a fun ass movie, and it's got just the right amount of camp, just the right amount of over the toppiness. It's got really fun, ahead of its time visual effects, which John Carpenter is known for.
Absolutely.
And it's just a great story and in a good adaptation. And so it's just got all these, it's just such the equation of the movie, the metric or the whatever you want to call it, the matrix of the movie fits together so well. And it's nothing is out of line. I feel like it's such a great movie. I really enjoy it. And it's got such this feeling of nostalgia. Cause when you're a teenager, you associate your freedom with a car and having the ability to ride around with your friends and go places and be stupid. And it has that element in it, but then it kind of mixes it in with this danger and this fear and this mania and psychopathy. It's so weird because it's you're sitting there watching this guy go crazy and become possessed by this car, but at the same time it's yeah, but that car is really fucking cool. So I can kind of understand it just a little bit. I'm not saying I would go around killing people. I'm just saying I kind of understand because that car is badass.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just such a cool movie. I really like it. I'm looking on IMDb and it's got a 6.7 rating.
I just saw that.
I mean, that's not bad.
Right.
But I was man, I'd give this an 8.
Yeah.
That's a solid 8.
It's, we'll have to do an episode where we just talk about just adaptations in general.
Yeah,
of King's work. Because I think that, I don't know. It would rank pretty high as far as a Stephen King adaptation for me. And I mean, there have been some iconic Stephen King adaptations.
Oh yeah, totally.
Looking at you, Dreamcatcher. But yeah, it's such a thrilling movie and such a blast. I don't know where I was going to go with that. The practical effects and
yes.
the effects of the car fixing itself and everything were astounding.
Yes.
And there's one shot in particular that I was floored by. Cause this is an iconic moment in the movie and in this genre. Like, this is an iconic scene I'm about to describe. And I had completely forgotten about it.
Mm-hmm.
The scene after the gas station where Christine is chasing after a character while engulfed in flames.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
So cool.
Incredible. Like, absolutely incredible.
Yes.
And just, he makes it look so easy.
He does.
And I can't imagine the amount of work that went into creating the visual effects in this movie. And
absolutely.
It worked flawlessly. Just an absolutely beautiful movie.
It really did.
And one thing that you kind of hit on that I wanted to mention was one of my gripes about the book and the movie is that people kept referring to Christine, the 57 Plymouth Fury, 57 Fury, as an ugly car. And I'm like, no way. It's freaking beautiful.
It's got the fins on the bed, the huge doors, and the lean forward seats, and it's got that coupe style. It's got that really cool stance.
Yeah.
I love Plymouth Furies.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
They became ugly.
Right.
Reference Detective Judkins' car, which is like a 1978 Plymouth Fury.
Sure.
It's an ugly, boxy looking cop car.
Yeah.
But that 57 is, I think it looks just as good as like a 57 Chevy, like a Bel Air.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's a beautiful car. Like, even especially the Plymouth insignia on the front, that V on the front.
Yes.
That's just so, like, it looks like a friggin' race car.
Oh, absolutely.
I love the Fury. I think it's a great car.
And I think it says something to the quality of the movie and the book that, like, the one thing that makes me struggle with my, like, suspending my disbelief in the movie and the book is that people call the car ugly.
Yeah.
Like, in a movie and book about a car that comes to life and kills people, the thing I can't buy is that they think the car is ugly.
Yeah, no kidding. I agree.
And it's, yeah.
Well, you referenced your kind of favorite visual part or action scene, if you will. My favorite is, where the first time that the car repairs itself.
Yes.
Inside the garage, and there's a really cool shot where Arnie is kind of like backlit by the Plymouth's headlights turning on by itself, and then it literally rebuilds itself. And like, the first time I saw this movie, I may have been in high school. I don't remember though, but I remember the first time I saw this, I was watching it and I had to Google it because I thought I was watching like a digitally remastered version.
Oh.
Where they added in some CGI like George Lucas does with Star Wars. Because it looked so good that I thought it was CGI.
Absolutely timeless.
I was so, and and it's funny because the technique that they used is incredibly simple. They basically just attached hydraulic pistons to the inside of the car, and it caused suction, and it just caused the car to kind of implode on itself. And then you just reverse the video, and it looks like it's repairing itself. I was like, that's so simple.
That's so simple, and
but John Carpenter masters simplicity so well. Like the opening scene of Halloween.
Yeah. Oh,
he's just walking around with a camera. That's all he's doing.
He created a dolly for it. Like, he created like that film technique, essentially.
Absolutely, right. So he's
incredible.
And it's just such a simple idea, and it just looks so incredible.
Oh, absolutely.
I love that scene so much, and it's kind of echoed later on when in the finale. It's just so. That's such a great idea, and it looks so freaking cool, and it's kind of scary too.
Yeah,
I mean, it's God, I really like this movie.
So great. What did you think of John Stockwell's performance as Dennis? Because I don't know something about his performance. I wouldn't say that it bothered me. Like, I actually liked his performance, but it kind of felt like it was a very teenager performance, which kudos to him, but it's just like, I kind of was just like, what are you doing? Like,
yes, yeah.
It kind of bothered me a little bit. Like
he has a shithead smirk on his face for like 3/4 of the movie.
Yes,
but you're right. That is kind of like a cocky teenager thing. That he's just like, oh, well, yeah, I just kind of roll with the punches. Side smirk. I totally agree. I think it's like, I kind of like the performance, but I kind of want to punch him in the face. Too.
Kind of, yeah.
He's just kind of he's douchey and the whole scene where he goes to like hit on Lee in the library, like it's almost it's like kind of pointless. Like how does this service the story at all?
Yeah.
It's kind of dumb, but it's so silly and like over the top that I'm like, it's just kind of fun, and I'm just kind of rolling with this. It's fun to watch, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, it does serve the story pretty well because it establishes that he's interested in her before.
Yeah,
but it is like you said, that sideways smirk, like shitty smirk that he does is exactly what. Yeah, that pinpoints exactly what I had like.
He's a cocky bastard.
Yeah,
you
like
know?
I wouldn't even say that I had a problem with it. It was just like it was so persistent throughout the entire movie that it just felt like maybe he should have dropped that at some point when the story got a little more serious.
Right.
And I didn't notice that for the movie they changed it around so a little bit, but in the book it's Roland LeBay is the one that sells the car,
right.
And then his brother comes later and tells him the story.
Mm-hmm.
But for the sake of expediting the story and for adapting it to a movie, they just had George LeBay, the one that sells it, and then the backstory is kind of told in exposition dumps. But one thing I didn't realize when I watched it, obviously, or until I watched it, but was that the guy that played George LeBay was the guy that played the old neighbor in Home Alone, which I appreciated that.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. That's going to make rewatching Home Alone really, really funny.
It is.
It's going to be like, there's nothing better than shoveling snow or ice, salting sidewalks, except maybe pussy.
God.
Oh, God. Yeah, so that I thought he did a fine job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because with a story like that, where you have to have this ominous thing, it kind of hinges on his performance and his aloofness with that. And then also on the other side of that, I appreciated like the Dead Zone, I appreciated the pacing of the movie in that, like, we don't get the Christine attack moment until probably about halfway through the movie. And that's kind of the same with the book as well. Yeah. I haven't talked to you about the book at all, have I?
No, and I haven't read the book since I was 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
are you going to listen to my episode?
Which is why, I'm definitely going to, because that's why I didn't necessarily want to be on that, because I knew I wasn't going to have time to reread it.
Right.
And I didn't want to talk about it after not having read it for 17 years.
I go on a little bit of a rant because because there's a whole chapter, like there's literally an entire chapter in that book called Football Woes, where it's just Dennis recounting like his season of playing football. The entire chapter.
Weird.
And then at the end of it, it's like, oh yeah, I had a dream about Christine. And it's just like, come on, Steve.
Wow.
You didn't need to put all that in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'll hear about that when you listen to the episode. But Will Darnell, how'd you feel about that character, the owner of the garage?
I thought it was a great direction to take the story in. You know, it's just an opportunity for so much conflict to arise. Yeah, I love the actor, Robert Prosky.
Yeah.
He's, what's his famous role that I'm thinking of him?
I looked it up, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
But his performance as Darnell, he's such an asshole.
Yes.
And he plays it like the way that John Stockwell plays the smirking, cocky high school kid. The actor that plays Darnell plays the perfect, like the asshole analog to that. Like he's as much of an asshole as John Stockwell is a cocky teenager.
Right. The role I'm thinking of him in is he's like the TV executive in Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of him in.
That's right.
I don't know why. Anyways, yeah, I think it's. I love the idea that Arnie had to like keep his car at a garage, and it resulted in him working there and doing all this shady shit for this guy.
Yeah.
And it's less emphasized in the movie, because in the book he's like smuggling cigarettes for him and shit like that in the book. And it's less played in the movie, but it's kind of implied in the movie.
Yeah, and let me stop you right there. And
Okay.
let's just dive into spoilers.
Yes.
Because there's a lot to talk about in a more free thing. So, we're going to go into spoilers for Christine. If you haven't seen the movie or read the book and you don't want to be spoiled, go check it out and then come back and listen. We'll have, timestamps in the show notes, and, we'll play music here to, break up the spoiler and non-spoiler section. So, yeah. All right, and spoilers on for Christine. Now, Tiny, you were saying that they punched up Will Darnell's character into a more asshole-ish character, a more pivotal character, and it was a little more. It was vague in the movie exactly what Arnie was doing for him.
Right, and I think that was fine. That was fine for the movie, because I don't think he necessarily needed that aspect of the story. It's kind of implied that he's doing some shady stuff for Darnell, but I love that they made his character so despicable, because this is going to sound crazy, but it makes his death scene really fun.
Yeah,
because Christine takes off and it kills the bullies, and it's like those scenes are awesome, and I love them. I love the one where he crushes the kind of chubby guy. That one's cool.
That was brutal.
That was awesome.
Oh,
it's like a rubber car trying to fit into there. That was I loved that. And then you praised the whole flaming car setting the guy on fire. That's awesome.
Incredible.
But for those, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, that's brutal. That's crazy. That's wild. But for when Darnell is killed, you're kind of like, you almost want to cheer, because like, yeah, kill that asshole. He sucks.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those scenes in a horror movie where you kind of like, if you were in the movie theater back in 1983 when this came out, people probably clapped.
Right.
During that part when he got killed. And he just gets crushed to death. It's like, it's not even like a sexy, a sexy, no one's catching on fire. He's not being crushed by a car fitting, it's not it's not exciting. It's just the seat moves forward and crushes him to death. But it's like, that asshole deserves it. It's just like a fun. I enjoyed it for that reason.
Yeah, and I like the way that it's done in the movie, because in the book, and I talked about this in my review of it, but in the book, he sees Christine come back, and then like he's killed later in the story. And actually, I was kind of lukewarm on how he was killed in the book, because in the book, Christine basically drives into his house,
right,
and like tears him up that way,
right.
Which I'm sure the movie just didn't have the budget for that,
right.
So in the book, he sees Christine, and then there's a long stretch of time before he's actually killed, and like there's a whole thing where he notices, like, he picks up what Christine's putting down. Like, he is wise to it. He's like, oh, this car is like magic and can drive itself and everything. And it's like, he starts to wonder, like, how can I use this to my advantage? And then later in the book, like, before, like, that isn't paid off remotely, and then he's killed off. It reads like King had this idea partway through where he's like, oh, Darnell's gonna, cause some trouble and try to use Christine for his own purposes. And then he's like, screw it. Let's have him busted by the cops and then have Christine murder him. Oh, yeah. And it's just, it felt a little disjointed there. So I like the way that it was streamlined for the movie, that he sees it, then he goes to check it out, and then gets killed. And I love the way the interactions with Arnie and the detective played by
Henry Dean
Stanton.
Yeah.
Who recently passed away, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. I love those interactions. Is it Judkins? Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah, his
Junkins.
That's right.
Yeah.
His interactions with Arnie were great, and again, I love Keith Gordon's performance in this movie. It's the transformation he goes throughout the movie is just astounding.
Agreed.
Yeah, and his interactions with Detective Junkins is like he. It's such an interesting kind of moment because the 2 or 3 scenes that he has with him, it shows like it's at a part where Arnie has become this kind of dick teenager, and he's kind of pushing everyone away, and so he's kind of putting up this front with the detective, and then when he finds out that Darnell has been killed, it's like he's that front is crumbling a little bit. He's like, I swear I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I gotta go to school. And it's such an interesting performance by Keith Gordon that he's really good at keeping up that persona and then letting it crack
right
a little bit in that scene.
Yeah, I especially love how confrontational he is in their first meeting in the movie. Like, I just love the part where like he kind of gets into his car and starts it up, and the detective is like leaning over looking at something, and he just revs the engine and looks right in his eyes like, what the hell do you want?
Yeah.
I was like, damn, who is this guy? Like, I can't even like, how does he have the balls to do that? Like, this guy's a cop, and your car kills people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, it's such an odd situation, but it's like, I would never react that way in that moment, or like, it's just so, it's so out of character from the Arnie that we see in the opening scene, you know, and like you said, the transformation he goes through.
Yeah.
I really like that part because it's just so, it's so confrontational.
Yeah. It reminded me of like, it's the equivalent of him like having a leash around a very vicious dog.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's good. Yeah.
And then like provoking him to cause, like, intimidate him.
Right.
It's a great scene and a great kind of way to show like how connected he is with the car to an extent. Yeah. So Lee Cabot, again, and this is a similar thing that I said about the Dead Zone with the character of Sarah in the Dead Zone, but I felt like she was kind of there. Just she didn't have much. Like the romance between her and it's kind of only like flirted upon, but her and Dennis, it just like it didn't have that connection that the book did. Like the book had this like whole thing where they had this kind of secret affair, and they were kind of, their attraction grew because they were both fearing the person that they both love in very different ways, him like losing him. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that kind of felt a little like I really, really like the movie. Like, I love this movie, but the way that the book, I kind of wish that they would have focused more on Arnie's transformation, because the book has such a great setup and such a great way of basically creating this character of Arnie into kind of an allegory, whether it's purposeful or not, but an allegory for like an abuse, like a drug abuser or substance abuser, and like the people in his life are trying to pull him back, but he can't because he's a victim to this thing. And I didn't really get much of that because he just transforms himself into just a dick, and it's not like you don't get that struggle. And that's one thing that I thought was missing just a little bit in the movie.
Yeah, I agree. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to your point about Lee Cabot, played by Alexandra Paul. Yeah, she was just kind of there. I mean, it's a shame because I feel like Stephen King actually writes female characters pretty well. I mean, he writes all characters really well, but you know, he's not known for writing weak female characters who are just love interests. Right. You know, he's a lot more than that, and his characters are a lot more than that.
Except for Salem's Lot. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I was listening to our friends over at Castle Rock TV podcast. They were reviewing it, and like they ripped it apart, and it's like they are so on point with that.
Yes, but that's the exception, not the rule.
Oh, absolutely. And that's an early novel,
right,
too.
Right. So, I mean, even, especially, the female lead in, The Shining, Mrs. Torrance.
Oh, yeah.
She's kind of a heroine, really, of the story. So, I mean, he's not known for that. And so, and unfortunately, a lot of his female characters in the movie adaptations end up being kind of token love interesty kind of characters. And she has like hardly any like meaty lines in this movie. It's all just like, I don't like that car. And
yes.
Yeah. It's just like, I want to talk to you about that car. And it's just, she's just very, very one note and just alarmist and a little ditzy and dumb, I guess, to an extent. It's kind of unfortunate.
Very flat. Like
very flat, yeah.
Like there's not much that's given for her to work with.
Yes.
Even in like her big scene, like that she almost chokes to death. It's like kind of a plot necessitated sequence and not anything like it doesn't lead, like it just leads to a rift in their relationship rather than an actual like characterization for her as a character.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. And then the other, I mean, Arnie's mother plays a part in the movie, and then Kelly Preston, is that her name?
Was it Kelly Preston?
Yeah. Kelly Preston, yeah.
Wow.
She has like 3 lines and she's really hot.
Right.
I mean, it's just like, so it's, yeah, it is kind of a bummer in that regard, but
yeah, in the whole, like in the book, his parents' relationship with him and their and Dennis's kind of the way that they confide in Dennis throughout the book it's a pretty pivotal part of the book, and it leads to a moment that is just kind of a shocking moment in the book that like it was excised from the entire movie, which is fair, but it's also like because they can't really obviously they can't put everything in the movie, but I felt like that characterization was missing pretty. Like I felt that was missing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What did you think of the kind of big finale with them cornering Christine and taking her out?
I thought it was really satisfying. Really satisfying. Because again, I love the part where the car regenerates, even though it's off camera. I like the part how, the lights come back on. The music is very well done in that moment. And just there's quite a bit of carnage, I like that especially like the part at the very climax where the bulldozer is crushing the car and it's trying to regenerate itself as it's being crushed. It's like, it's so sentient and like it feels so alive in that moment.
Absolutely.
And it's, playing the music through the radio. And it just looks amazing. Again, it almost looks like it's CGI. Like it's a very clean, practical effect that they were able to pull off. And
just amazing.
It looks so good.
Yeah, the sound design, like you said, the music also. Like John Carpenter did the music for the movie, and it's iconic. It's amazing.
Right, and I really appreciate the shot of that. What's cool about the climax that I also really appreciate is that throughout it, you're not sure if Arnie is in the car. If he's in the car, is he driving? Is he off to the side watching? You really don't know. And then you get this really cool shot of his face, like being illuminated by the dashboard.
Yes.
And he looks so creepy and just completely possessed.
Yeah. Demonic.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then right after that scene, he crashes into the office and goes flying through the windshield and is impaled on a piece of glass. And his last action of his life is stroking the Plymouth symbol.
Yes.
And I was like, God, that's fucked up. Yeah. But it's so cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that climax was terrific.
Me too. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a beautiful story of a boy and his first love.
It's a love story, yeah.
It is.
And then the denouement is really fun.
Yeah.
the little compressed box of
the classic fake out thing. I thought that was effective.
It was fun. I liked it. Yeah.
And then obviously like the last scene, it just slowly like a
That's
little.
what I'm
hint
talking.
of it.
Yeah, the grill just moving just that little bit. It's
so great.
I loved that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on Christine the movie?
Let's see. It's of note that it came out the same year as The Dead Zone.
Yeah.
Which we talked about before. I'm not sure I have really much else to say about it.
Yeah, same here.
I just really dig it.
Me too. I really want to. I need to buy it on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that we have this podcast as an excuse to revisit this stuff.
Yeah.
Just really, really fun movie. Really incredible acting from Keith Gordon. We didn't really talk that much. Like I lauded praise on it. Like, how'd you feel about his performance?
Oh, I absolutely like it too. I think he's a little over the top, but again, he's crazy. He's being possessed, and so he's supposed to be a little over the top. Especially I really like the scene where he picks up Dennis and they go for a drive and like they're drinking beer and he's just like cranking it and going as fast as he can.
Yes,
I really like that scene. And I think he's good in that scene, but he kind of toes the line just a little bit of being a little too crazy and a little over the top. I think he gets a little too wide-eyed, I think, maybe, or something. I don't know, but I can't criticize it too much. I think it was pretty well done and well handled. I like his performance a lot, especially if you were to look at that scene juxtaposed next to the opening scene where he's, carrying the trash out before school and the trash bag breaks open and he's, a quintessential nerd. That's such a big difference between those two moments that, that's a challenging thing to achieve as an actor. And I think he did a great job.
Absolutely.
I'm glad he, his acting career kind of faded out, but he's done a ton of directing since then. So I'm glad that he found a successful outlet for his creativity. So he seems like an enjoyable guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And I think that'll do it for this episode of Tower Junkies.
Yes, it will.
So thank you guys so much for listening. And once again, get those reviews in and you enter for a chance to win a very cool Tower Junkies t-shirt.
Yep.
So next time on the podcast, I'm trying to mentally think of where we'll be in the release here, but we'll probably soon we're going to be doing our commentary track for the Dark Tower, and we'll throw in some more like Dark Tower palaver episodes in the coming weeks. But until then, thank you guys so much for listening. And anything else?
That's it.
All right.
Long days and pleasant nights.
May you have twice the number. Thank you for listening to Tower Junkies, a Dark Tower podcast presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at TowerJunkiesPod.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or anywhere else podcasts are found. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can find ways to do that at TowerJunkiesPod.com/donate, or become a patron for Obsessive Viewer at Patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer for recurring donations with different reward tiers. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can contact us by emailing us at matt@ObsessiveViewer.com, or by tweeting us at TowerJunkiesPod or at ObsessiveViewer and at ObsessiveTiny. You can also like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/TowerJunkiesPod. For more podcast content from ObsessiveViewer.com, check out Anthology, my solo side project podcast where I'm reviewing The Twilight Zone as a first-time viewer and exploring other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology television shows. You can find Anthology at anthologypod.com and anywhere podcasts are found. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the app of your choice. Once again, thank you for listening to Tower Junkies, and we'll see you next time.